I am 28 years old. Today was my wedding day. The music was soft. The flowers smelled sweet. Everything was supposed to be perfect. My twin sister, Sara, stood beside me. She was my maid of honor. She looked beautiful in her dress, but her eyes were not happy. They were scared. I thought it was just nerves for me. The minister started to speak. He said the words that would join me and Liam forever. I looked at Liam. He was handsome. He was smiling at me. But the smile did not seem right. It felt cold. Sara suddenly grabbed my hand. Her fingers were tight. I looked at her. Her face was pale. She leaned close to my ear. Her whisper was a tiny, sharp thing. "He thinks you're me," she said. My whole body went still. The minister's voice faded away. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. "He thinks I am Sara." Why would he think that? We were identical, yes, but we were not the same. I was Clara. I was the one he loved. I was the one he asked to marry him. This had to be a joke, a terrible, cruel joke from my sister. She always liked to cause trouble. I tried to pull my hand away from her. I wanted to tell her to stop, but she held on tighter. Her eyes were wide. They were begging me to understand. I looked back at Liam. He was still smiling that strange smile. He was not looking at me. He was looking at both of us. He looked from my face to Sara's face. And then his smile got bigger. It was not a smile of love. It was a smile of victory. And in that one moment, I knew. Sara was not joking, and Liam was not confused. He knew exactly who I was, and he knew who she was. The smile was for both of them. It was a shared secret. A secret that I was not a part of. My wedding day was not my wedding day at all. It was theirs. The minister asked if I, Clara, would take Liam. My throat was dry. I could not speak. Sara squeezed my hand again, a silent warning. What was I supposed to do? Scream? Run? Tell everyone that my fiancé and my twin sister were betraying me right here at the altar? The thought made me feel sick. All those faces were looking at me. My mother, my father, our friends. They were all smiling. They were all happy for me. They had no idea. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Liam's smile faltered for a second. He looked impatient. He gave a tiny nod, a signal meant for Sara, not for me. I saw it. I saw the quick glance she gave him back. They were communicating without words, and I was the audience to their silent play. My heart felt like a stone in my chest, heavy and cold. I had to say something. I had to do something. But my feet were glued to the floor. My voice was gone. The minister cleared his throat. "Clara?" he asked gently. Liam's eyes narrowed. He was looking at me now. Really looking at me. And there was no love there. There was only a cold, hard demand. Say yes. Play your part. My mind was spinning. What part was I supposed to be playing? The fool? The bride who did not know she was being replaced? I felt a wave of anger wash over the shock. It was hot and sharp. It gave me a flicker of strength. I took a shaky breath. I looked straight at Liam. I started. Sara's grip on my hand became painful. "Do," she whispered, her voice so low only I could hear it. It was not a suggestion. It was an order. And I understood. They had a plan that involved me being quiet, a plan that would fall apart if I screamed the truth right now. What would happen if I did? My family would be humiliated. This entire day, this expensive, beautiful day, would become a disaster. And what would they do? Deny it? Call me crazy? Sara was good at that. She had been doing it our whole lives. She would twist my words, make me look like the jealous, unstable sister. She had done it before over small things. She would definitely do it for something this big. So I made a choice. A choice that felt like swallowing poison. I closed my eyes for a second. When I opened them, I looked at the minister. I do, I said. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. The rest of the ceremony was a blur. I felt like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. I said the vows that were meant for me, but they felt like lies. Liam put the ring on my finger. It felt cold and heavy, like a shackle. When he kissed me, his lips were firm and quick. There was no warmth. It was the kiss of a business partner, not a husband. As we walked back down the aisle, people cheered. They threw flower petals. They did not see the truth. They saw a happy couple. They saw what they were supposed to see. At the reception, the nightmare continued. Liam held my hand, but his touch was possessive, not affectionate. He guided me through the crowd, a perfect picture of a loving groom. Sara was always nearby. She would catch my eye and give me a small, tight smile. It was a smile that said, "I won. You lost." I felt a rage building inside me that was so intense it made me dizzy, but I pushed it down. I could not let them see it. Not yet. I had to get through this. I had to pretend. I smiled at guests. I thanked them for coming. I danced the first dance with my new husband, who was not really my husband. He held me stiffly. "You did well." He murmured into my ear, his voice low and cruel. "Just keep smiling. Don't make a scene." So he was admitting it. Right here on the dance floor, surrounded by our family and friends. The boldness of it stole my breath. "Why?" I whispered back, my voice trembling. He pulled back slightly to look at me. His eyes were like chips of ice. "Because this was always the plan, Clara. You just weren't smart enough to see it." He said it so calmly, like he was talking about the weather, the plan. It was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a plan. They had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. Every dinner, every movie night, every time he told me he loved me. It was all a lie, a performance. And I was the only one who did not have the script. I needed proof. I needed to understand everything before I did anything. A public scene now would be my word against theirs. And they were 2 against 1. They would paint me as hysterical. I had to be smart. I had to be patient. My revenge would not be a loud, messy explosion. It would be quiet. It would be precise. And it would destroy them. I excused myself to go to the restroom. I needed a moment to breathe. A moment to think. My reflection in the mirror was a stranger. A woman in a white dress with haunted eyes. I splashed cold water on my face. My hands were shaking. I took deep breaths. "Calm down, Clara. Think. What do you know? You know they planned this. You know Liam is a monster. You know your sister is a snake. What don't you know? You don't know why." That was the key. The why. It had to be more than just Sara wanting my life. She had always been jealous, but this was on another level. This was calculated and evil. There had to be a reason Liam would go along with it. A big reason. Money. It was always about money, wasn't it? I remembered a conversation from a few weeks ago. Liam had been asking about my inheritance. My grandfather had left a significant trust fund for both me and Sara. But there were conditions. The money was to be released upon our 30th birthday, or upon a stable and suitable marriage, as the lawyers put it. My father, the trustee, had to approve of the husband, and he had approved of Liam. He adored Liam. He thought Liam was perfect for me. The stable, successful businessman. A better match than any of Sara's wild boyfriends. My blood ran cold. Was that it? Did they need my trust fund? Did Liam need the money for his business? He had mentioned some financial troubles a while back, but he had brushed it off, saying everything was under control. I had believed him. I was such a fool. I went back to the party. I saw Sara talking to my father. She was laughing, pointing at me and Liam on the dance floor. My father was beaming. He looked so proud. He had no idea he was looking at a lie. My own father was a pawn in their game. The thought made my stomach churn with a new kind of anger. They were not just hurting me. They were using my entire family. I needed to find something concrete. A text message, an email, anything. I saw Sara had left her small clutch purse on the table with my parents. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. I walked over to the table, my heart pounding. "Mom, Dad, are you having a good time?" I asked, forcing a bright smile. "We're so happy for you, sweetie," my mother said, her eyes misty. "You and Liam make a beautiful couple." "He's a good man, Clara," my father added, patting my hand. "He'll take care of you." The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. "I'm going to freshen up," I said, my voice sounding thin. "Sara, can I borrow your lipstick? I think I left mine upstairs." I did not wait for an answer. I just picked up her purse from the table. She was across the room talking to one of Liam's groomsmen. She saw me take it. For a split second, I saw panic in her eyes. But then she smiled and gave me a little wave as if to say, "Of course, sister." She was playing her part perfectly. She thought I was just the clueless bride. She had no idea the war had just begun. I hurried back to the restroom. I locked the door. My fingers fumbled with the clasp on her purse. Inside, among the lipstick and tissues, was her phone. It was locked with a passcode. Of course it was. I tried her birthday. No luck. I tried our shared birthday. Nothing. I tried Liam's birthday. It opened. My breath hitched. I felt a sick thrill, a mix of dread and vindication. I was right. I opened her text messages. The top conversation was with Liam. I scrolled up, my eyes scanning the words. The messages went back for months. They were filled with secret meetings, with lies they told me, with details of their plan. "She has no idea." One of Liam's texts read, "She's so trusting. It's almost sad." Sarah's reply, "Don't feel sad. She's had everything her whole life. It's my turn now. Is the paperwork ready?" Paperwork. What paperwork? I kept scrolling. I found it. A message from Liam sent 2 days ago. "The power of attorney is drafted. All we need is her signature on the trust release forms after the wedding. We'll tell her it's for the house deed. She won't even read it." My vision blurred. It was not just about getting married. It was about stealing my inheritance. They were going to have me sign away my entire future, and I would have done it without a second thought. Because I trusted them. I loved them. I took a picture of the messages with my own phone. I needed evidence. I put her phone back in her purse, my mind racing. I had to get out of here. I had to get away from them. But I could not just run. That would make me look guilty, unstable. I had to play their game, but I had to play it better. I walked out of the restroom and handed the purse back to Sara. "Thanks," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Your phone was buzzing. A lot of messages." I watched her face. The flicker of fear was back in her eyes. She quickly checked her phone. She would not see that anything was amiss. I had been careful. She relaxed. "Just friends saying congratulations," she said with a dismissive wave. "For us." The way she said us was deliberate. A little twist of the knife. I just smiled. It was a cold, empty smile. Not my own. It was a smile I had learned from Liam just an hour ago. "Of course," I said. "It's a happy day for the whole family." The rest of the night was a performance. I was the star actress in a tragedy, and no one else knew. I cut the cake with Liam. I threw the bouquet, making sure it landed far away from my sister. When it was time to leave, Liam led me to the car. Our friends and family cheered, blowing bubbles. It was a perfect storybook ending to a fairy tale wedding. Except the princess was a prisoner, and the prince was the dragon. In the car, the silence was heavy. Liam drove. He did not look at me. He did not speak. The happy groom mask was gone. Now he was just a cold, calculating stranger. "Where are we going?" I asked. The hotel reservations were for a suite downtown. Change of plans, he said, his voice flat. We're going to my parents' lake house for a few days. To sort things out. Sort things out. He meant to finalize their theft, to get my signature on those papers in a place where I was isolated and alone with him. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had to be careful. I was walking into the lion's den, but I had to. It was the only way to get more information, the only way to find out the full extent of their plan. That sounds nice, I said, matching his cool tone. Quiet. He glanced at me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He expected tears. He expected a fight. He did not expect me to be calm. Good. Let him underestimate me. That was my only advantage. The lake house was beautiful. It was also very remote. No neighbors for miles, just the dark water and the silent trees. As we walked inside, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. This was where they planned to break me. Liam dropped the bags in the hall. He turned to me, his arms crossed. The pretense was completely gone. Let's not waste time, Clara, he said. You know what's happening. I know you know. Sara told me you looked shocked at the altar. Shocked is a good word for it, I said, my voice level. Get over it, he snapped. This is how it has to be. My company is in trouble. I need an investor. Your trust fund is the investment. Sara understands. She's practical. And I'm not? I asked, a dangerous edge to my voice. You're sentimental, he scoffed. You would have wanted to talk about it. You would have wanted lawyers and financial advisors. We don't have time for that. This is faster. Cleaner. Faster. Cleaner. He was talking about ruining my life as if it were a business transaction. The rage I had been suppressing all night started to bubble to the surface, but I held it back. I needed more. So you never loved me, I said. It was not a question. It was a statement. He actually laughed, a short, ugly sound. Love? Don't be naive. It was an arrangement. I needed a wife from a good family. You were the right choice, the respectable one, the one your father would approve of. But Sara is a survivor. She's like me. She sees what she wants and she takes it. You just wait for things to be given to you. Every word was a slap in the face. He was twisting my kindness into weakness, my trust into stupidity. I hated him so much in that moment. I could feel it in my bones. And what does Sara get out of this? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. She gets me, he said with a smirk. And a percentage. Enough to start over somewhere new. Away from this boring town. Away from you. So that was the plan. They would take my money and they would disappear together. They would leave me with a sham marriage, a broken heart, and an empty bank account. And everyone would blame me. They would say I drove him away. They would say I was unstable. Sara would make sure of that. I see, I said slowly. I let the silence hang in the air. I let him think he had won. I let him see the hurt in my eyes. It was not hard to fake. The hurt was real. But underneath it, a cold, hard resolve was forming. I would not let them win. I would burn their entire world to the ground. Good, he said, misinterpreting my silence as acceptance. Now, we have some papers to sign in the morning. Just some formalities for the house we were going to buy. Then we can all move on with our lives. He walked away, heading towards the bedroom as if the conversation was over. As if I was just a problem that had been solved. I stood alone in the dark living room, the moonlight reflecting off the still water of the lake outside. He thought he was in control. He thought I was beaten. He had no idea that I was not a pawn in his game anymore. I was the one who was about to change all the rules. The next morning, I woke up before him. The house was quiet. I found the briefcase he had brought. It was locked. I did not need to pick it. I knew the combination. It was the date we had met. The irony was bitter. Inside, just as I expected, was a thick folder of documents. I carefully opened it. Trust Fund Disbursement Agreement. Durable Power of Attorney. My name was printed on all the signature lines. Clara. They needed Clara's signature. I took out my phone. I took pictures of every single page. Clear, perfect pictures. Then I put everything back exactly as I had found it. I closed the briefcase. I locked it. I went into the kitchen and started making coffee as if it were a normal morning. When Liam came into the kitchen, he was smiling. He was confident. "Morning," he said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Sleep well?" "Like a baby," I lied, handing him the sugar. "Good," he said. "After breakfast, we'll take care of that paperwork. Then Sara is going to drive up. We'll have a little family meeting. Finalize the transition." The transition, that's what he called it. The process of erasing me from my own life. "Of course," I said with a small smile. "Whatever you think is best." He looked pleased. My compliance was making this easy for him. He sat down at the table with the briefcase. He took out the papers and a pen. He spread them out in front of me. "Just sign here, here, and here," he said, pointing to the lines. "It's just for the mortgage application on the new house." I looked down at the papers. I looked at my name. I looked at the pen in his hand. I could feel my heart beating a steady, determined rhythm. The time for being quiet was over. The time for playing the victim was over. "No," I said. His smile vanished. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice low and threatening. I said no, I repeated, looking him straight in the eye. "I'm not signing anything." His face darkened with anger. "Don't be stupid, Clara. You don't have a choice." "Oh, I think I do," I said. I pulled out my phone. I opened the gallery. I showed him the picture of his text messages with Sara. His eyes widened. He stared at the screen, his face turning pale. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. "Sara's phone," I said calmly. She should really be more careful with her passcodes. Liam's birthday? A little on the nose, don't you think? He was speechless. He just stared at me, his mind clearly racing, trying to figure a way out of this. "And then there's these," I continued, swiping to the pictures of the legal documents. "A mortgage application that gives you full power of attorney and drains my trust fund. That's not just immoral, Liam. It's highly illegal. I believe the word is fraud." He slammed his hand on the table. "You have no idea what you're doing," he snarled. "I know exactly what I'm doing," I said, my voice as cold as ice. "I am undoing what you and my sister have done, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it." He lunged across the table, trying to grab my phone. I was faster. I stood up and moved back, holding the phone tightly. "Don't even think about it," I warned. "Everything you're seeing on this phone is already backed up. It's in the cloud. It's on my laptop. It's in an email, ready to be sent to my lawyer and my father with the click of a button." He froze. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. He had underestimated me. He thought I was the soft one, the weak one. He never imagined I had a spine of steel. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "What do I want?" I echoed, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. "I want my life back. I want you and my sister to pay for what you did. But first, we're going to wait for Sara to get here. You called it a family meeting. I think that's a perfect idea." The wait for Sara was the longest hour of my life. Liam sat at the table, silent and defeated. He did not look at me. He just stared at the fraudulent papers, his grand plan in ruins. I sat across from him, my phone in my hand. I was in control now. The feeling was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. When Sara's car pulled into the driveway, my heart started to pound again. This was it, the final confrontation. She walked in, smiling brightly. "Is it done?" she asked, looking at Liam. She did not even glance at me. "Hello, Sara?" I said. She jumped, startled. She finally looked at me. Her smile faded. She saw the look on my face. She saw the look on Liam's face. She knew something was wrong. "Clara, what's going on? Why do you look like that?" "I think you know why," I said. I turned my phone around and showed her the screen. The text messages. Her text messages. Her face went white. "How?" she stammered. "You should really pick better hiding places for your secret, sister," I said. "And better partners in crime." Liam folded pretty quickly once he realized I had proof. Sara looked at Liam, her eyes full of betrayal. "You told her?" she shrieked. "She already knew." He shot back, standing up. "She had the messages." "This is your fault," she screamed at him. "You were supposed to handle her." "And you were supposed to be smart enough not to leave your phone lying around," he yelled back. They started arguing, throwing blame back and forth. It was pathetic. All their confidence, all their smug superiority, it was all gone, replaced by ugly, desperate fear. I let them fight for a few minutes. I wanted to see them tear each other apart. It was a small, bitter taste of the justice I craved. Finally, I had had enough. "Quiet," I said, my voice sharp and loud. They both stopped and looked at me. "This isn't about who's to blame. You're both guilty, and you're both going to fix this." "Fix it? How?" Sara asked, her voice trembling. "First," I said, looking at Liam, "this marriage is over. We will be getting an annulment. You will not contest it. You will not ask for anything. You will sign whatever my lawyer puts in front of you. Do you understand?" He nodded, his eyes on the floor. "Second," I said, turning to Sara, "you are going to confess. To everything." Her eyes widened in horror. "No, I can't. He'll disown me." "He should," I said coldly. "But that's not my decision to make. You are going to tell him and Mom what you did. You will tell them about the plan, the lies, the money. You will not leave out a single detail. And you will do it today." "Clara, please," she begged, tears starting to stream down her face. "Don't make me do this. I'll do anything else. I'll give the money back." "What money?" I asked with a deadpan expression. "You didn't get any money. The plan failed. Remember?" Her face crumpled. The tears were real now. Tears of self-pity, not of remorse. "You're not sorry you did it, Sara. You're just sorry you got caught." "And if we don't?" Liam asked, a flicker of his old arrogance returning. "What will you do? Go to the police? It's your word against ours." "It's my word. Plus time-stamped photos of your text messages, your fraudulent legal documents, and a recording of this entire conversation," I said, holding up my phone. I had started recording the moment Sara walked in the door. I think a district attorney would find that very interesting. Conspiracy to commit fraud is a serious felony. You're a businessman, Liam. How would a prison sentence look on your resume? The color drained from his face again. He was beaten. They both were. I had them trapped. "What do we do?" Sara sobbed, looking to Liam for an answer. But he had none. He just stared at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. "You do exactly as I say," I told them. "You are going to drive back to our parents' house, right now. I will follow you. And you will tell them the truth. All of it." The drive back to town was silent. I followed their car, a safe distance behind. I watched them in my rearview mirror. Two pathetic figures who had tried to ruin my life for their own selfish greed. I felt no pity for them, only a cold, hard satisfaction. When we arrived at my parents' house, I made them wait in the car. I went inside first. My mother and father were in the living room looking at wedding photos on a tablet. They smiled when they saw me. "Clara, you're back already. We thought you'd be at the lake for a week," my mother said, getting up to hug me. "We need to talk," I said, my voice serious. Liam and Sara are outside. I need you to sit down and listen to me. And please don't interrupt until I'm finished. They saw the look on my face and knew something was terribly wrong. They sat on the sofa. I stood in front of them, took a deep breath, and I told them everything. I started at the altar. I told them about Sara's whisper, about Liam's smile. I showed them the text messages on my phone. I showed them the pictures of the fraudulent documents. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father's face grew dark with a rage I had never seen before. He was a quiet, gentle man, but in that moment, he looked like he could break something. When I finished, the room was silent. The only sound was my mother's quiet sobbing. "Bring them in," my father said, his voice dangerously low. I went to the door and called them. They walked in like prisoners on their way to the gallows. They stood before my parents, unable to meet their eyes. "Is it true?" my father asked, his voice shaking with fury. He looked at Sara. "Is what your sister said true?" Sara could only nod, her body shaking with sobs. "Look at me," he roared. Sara flinched and looked up at him. "You did this? To your own sister? You plotted to steal from her? To ruin her life?" "I'm sorry, Daddy," she cried. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this," he said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. He turned his gaze to Liam. "And you. I welcomed you into my home. I trusted you with my daughter. I treated you like a son." He stood up and walked towards Liam. For a second, I thought he was going to hit him, but he stopped right in front of him. "You are a parasite, a worthless, greedy coward. Get out of my house." "Mr. Thompson, I can explain," Liam started. "There is nothing to explain." My father cut him off. "You will sign the annulment papers. You will never contact my daughter again. You will never come near my family again. If I ever see your face again, I will not be so controlled. Now get out." Liam looked at Sara, a desperate, pleading look in his eyes. But she wouldn't look at him. She had chosen her side, the side she thought would save her. He turned and walked out the door without another word. The door slammed shut behind him, a final, definitive sound. Now it was just Sara. She was on her knees, crying at my father's feet. "Please, Daddy, forgive me," she pleaded. My father looked down at her, and his face was like stone. "I don't know who you are," he said slowly. "My daughter wouldn't do this. My daughter wouldn't be so cruel, so full of hate." "I can fix it," she said desperately. "No, you can't," he said. "You broke something that can never be fixed. You broke our trust. You broke this family." He looked at my mother, whose face was streaked with tears. He looked at me, his eyes full of a pain that mirrored my own. "You need to leave, Sara," my father said, his voice heavy with finality. "Pack your things. I will arrange for them to be sent to you. You are no longer welcome in this house." Sara's head snapped up. "No, you can't mean that. Where will I go?" "I don't care," he said, his voice cold. "You made your choice. You chose him. You chose his greed. Now you can live with the consequences." He turned his back on her and walked over to my mother, putting his arm around her. Sara looked at me, her eyes begging for help. "Clara, please," she whispered. "Don't let him do this. You're my sister." "You stopped being my sister at the altar," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "You made your bed, Sara. Now you have to lie in it." She stared at me for a long moment, and the pleading in her eyes turned to hatred, the same ugly hatred I had seen in Liam's eyes. She finally saw that there was no way out. She had lost. She got to her feet, her face twisted and ugly. "I hate you," she spat. "You've always had everything. You've always been the perfect one. I hope you're happy now, all alone in your perfect little life." Then she turned and ran from the house. I watched her go. I did not feel sadness. I did not feel anger. I felt nothing. just a vast, empty space where my sister used to be. The days that followed were difficult. The annulment was quick and quiet. Liam signed the papers without a fight. My lawyer made sure of it. The news of the canceled wedding spread through our small town. We told people it was a mutual decision. It was easier than telling the truth. The truth was too ugly. My parents were heartbroken. My mother cried for days. My father retreated into a stony silence. Their image of their perfect family was shattered. They had to face the reality that one of their daughters was capable of such a monstrous betrayal. They also had to face their own role in it. They had always babied Sara. They had always made excuses for her bad behavior. They had enabled her for years. And this was the result. We had a long talk, my parents and I. There were a lot of tears, a lot of apologies. They apologized for not seeing what Sara was becoming, for always taking her side, for not protecting me. I told them I did not blame them. I blamed Sara, and I blamed Liam. But we all knew that things had to change. The family dynamic was broken, and we had to rebuild it on a foundation of honesty. I started seeing a therapist. I needed to talk to someone who was not emotionally involved. Someone who could help me sort through the tangled mess of betrayal, anger, and grief. It helped. Slowly, day by day, I started to heal. I started to feel like myself again. Not the old me. The trusting, naive me was gone forever. But a new me was emerging, a stronger me, a wiser me. A few weeks later, my friend Maya came to visit. She was the one friend I had told the whole truth to. She had been my rock through the whole ordeal. She brought a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "How are you doing?" she asked, her voice gentle. "I'm okay," I said, and I realized it was true. "I'm really okay." "Have you heard from them?" she asked carefully. "Not a word," I said. Liam's company went bankrupt. I saw it in the paper. Apparently, he was in a lot more trouble than he let on. He needed my money to cover massive debts and some very illegal business practices. I guess my little drama saved me from a much bigger one. I took a sip of wine. As for Sara, my parents sent her some money, enough to get an apartment in another city. They said she can't come back until she gets professional help and proves she's changed. I don't know if that will ever happen. "Do you want it to?" Maya asked. I thought about it for a moment. Did I want my sister back? The sister I grew up with? Or the stranger she had become? I don't know, I said honestly. I miss the idea of her. I miss having a sister. But I don't miss the person she is now. The jealousy, the lies. I can't have that in my life. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful. A new day was coming. A new beginning. "You know," I said, breaking the silence. For a while there, I felt like they had destroyed me, like they had taken everything, but they didn't. I looked at Maya, a real smile finally reaching my eyes. They took a man I thought I loved, but he was a lie. They tried to take my money, but they failed. They broke my heart, but it's healing. And in the end, they gave me something I never knew I needed. "What's that?" she asked. "They gave me myself," I said. "The real me. The one who is strong enough to fight for herself. The one who won't be a victim. And I wouldn't trade that for anything." The next chapter of my life began. I focused on my career. I traveled. I reconnected with friends. I learned to trust myself again. The scars were still there, but they were a part of my story, a reminder of the battle I had won. One day, about a year later, I got a letter. It was from Sara. I almost threw it away. But my curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. It was a long letter, full of apologies and excuses. She was in therapy. She was working a menial job. She was miserable. She said she finally understood the gravity of what she had done. She begged for my forgiveness. She asked if we could start over. I read the letter twice. The old me would have cried. The old me would have wanted to believe her. The old me would have opened her arms and welcomed her back. But the old me was gone. I took out a piece of paper and a pen. I wrote a single sentence. I hope you find peace. I put it in an envelope and mailed it. It was not forgiveness. It was not an invitation. It was a release. I was releasing her. I was releasing the anger. I was releasing the past. Her journey was her own now, and so was mine. I walked out of the post office and into the sunshine. I felt light. I felt free. They had tried to write my story for me, a story of a tragic, broken woman, but I had taken the pen back. And I was writing my own ending. It was not a fairy tale. It was something better. It was real. And it was mine. My father called me a few days after that. His voice was strained. "Clara, I need to tell you something about Sara," he said. My heart gave a little jolt. "Is she okay?" I asked, a reflex of a lifetime of being her sister. "That depends on your definition of okay," he said grimly. "She called last night. She was desperate. It seems Liam found her." A cold feeling crept over me. "What do you mean he found her?" "He's blaming her for everything," my father explained. "His business is gone. His reputation is ruined. He has nothing left. And he's decided it's all her fault. He's been harassing her, threatening her." "Is she in danger?" I asked, my voice tight. "She thinks so," he said. "She wants to come home. She says she's scared." I was silent. The image of Sara, alone and frightened, tugged at something deep inside me. But the memory of her face, twisted with hate as she left our house, was stronger. "What did you tell her?" I asked. I told her. I told her this was the life she chose," my father said, his voice heavy with sadness. "I told her she made a deal with the devil, and now he's come to collect. I sent her money for a plane ticket to a different state and told her to change her name. I told her not to contact us again, that Liam would eventually look for her here." He paused. "Did I do the right thing, Clara?" I closed my eyes. It was a harsh decision. A father turning his back on his daughter. But it was also a necessary one. Sara and Liam had created a vortex of toxicity. Letting her back into our lives would be like inviting the storm back into our house. "You did the only thing you could do, Dad," I said softly. "You protected our family. You protected us." We didn't talk much after that. There was nothing left to say. The final thread connecting us to Sara and Liam had been cut. They were ghosts now, haunting a past I was determined to leave behind. Life moved on. I was promoted at work. I bought my own small house, a place that was entirely mine, filled with light and peace. I adopted a dog. I found joy in simple things: the quiet of the morning, the warmth of the sun, the loyalty of a good friend. I never heard from Sara again. I never heard from Liam again. They vanished from my life as completely as if they had never existed. Sometimes, late at night, I would wonder what happened to them. I pictured them trapped in a cycle of their own making, two destructive people feeding off each other's misery. It was a dark thought, and I would push it away. Their story was over. Mine was just beginning. I learned to trust again, slowly and carefully. I met a man. His name was Ben. He was kind and funny and patient. He knew my story. I told him everything, right from the beginning. I needed him to know the whole truth of who I was, scars and all. He didn't run. He listened. And when I was done, he just took my hand. "They must have been fools," he said simply, "to throw away someone like you." And in that moment, I knew. The hole in my heart, the one that had been carved out by my sister and the man I was supposed to marry, was finally starting to fill up. Not with a replacement for what I had lost, but with something new. Something better. Something I had built myself. My wedding day? My real wedding day was nothing like the first one. It was small. Just a few close friends and family in the backyard of my little house. Ben and I wrote our own vows. There were no secrets, no lies, only love. A real, honest, and steady love. As I stood there holding Ben's hands, I looked out at the faces of the people I loved. My parents, their smiles genuine this time, free from the weight of the past. My friend Maya, wiping away a happy tear. My dog, wagging his tail at my feet. Everything was as it should be. I was not the same woman who had stood at that altar 2 years ago. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew her own worth. Someone who had walked through fire and come out the other side, not burned, but forged. Liam and Sara had tried to take everything from me. They thought they could erase me and steal my life. But they had failed. They didn't understand. A life isn't something you can steal. It's something you build. And mine was built on a foundation they could never touch. Resilience, honesty, and a strength they never knew I had. They were a chapter in my story, a dark and painful one, but they were not the end. The rest of the book was mine to write, and I knew, with a certainty that filled my entire being, that it was going to be a beautiful one. The process of rebuilding was not just about my personal life. It was about reclaiming my financial independence with a fierceness I hadn't known I possessed. The near theft of my inheritance had been a brutal wake-up call. I had always been responsible with money, but I had also been trusting, assuming the systems in place and the people I loved would protect my interests. That illusion was shattered. I hired a new financial advisor, a sharp woman named Eleanor who came highly recommended. In our first meeting, I laid everything out. The trust, the attempted fraud, everything. I didn't want any comforting words. I wanted a strategy. Your father has been the trustee until now, correct? Eleanor asked, looking over the documents I'd brought. Yes, I said. He's a good man, but he's not a financial expert. He approved of Liam because Liam looked good on paper. He was easily fooled. Many people are, Eleanor said, not unkindly. The best con men are the most charming. The goal now is to make sure you are never in that position again. We need to fortify your assets, make them untouchable to anyone but you. Over the next few months, Eleanor and I worked tirelessly. We restructured the trust. We put new legal protections in place, clauses and conditions that would require multiple independent verifications for any significant transaction. We diversified my investments. I learned about stocks, bonds, and real estate. I read financial reports. I asked questions, hundreds of them, until I understood every single line item, every decimal point. It was empowering. I was no longer a passive beneficiary of my grandfather's legacy. I was its active guardian. The money was not just a safety net anymore. It was a tool I would use to build the life I wanted, on my own terms. My father was fully supportive. He was relieved to hand over the primary responsibilities. I should have done this with you years ago, Clara, he admitted one evening as we sat on my porch. I thought I was protecting you by handling it all. I see now that I was just keeping you in the dark. That made you vulnerable. We were all vulnerable, I said. We didn't know there was a predator in the house. I'll never forgive myself for letting him in, he said, his voice thick with regret. You have to, Dad, I told him, putting my hand on his. You have to forgive yourself. I have. We can't let them keep poisoning us. Their chapter is over. He nodded, but I could see the sadness still lingering in his eyes. The wound Sara had left on our family was deep. It might never fully heal, but we were learning to live with the scar. My relationship with my mother changed too. She had always seen me as the strong one, the one who didn't need as much attention as Sara. After the betrayal, she started to see the cracks in that perception. She saw how much I had been hurting, how much I had been carrying alone. She started calling more, not to ask for anything, but just to talk. She would come over for lunch. We started to build a new kind of relationship, one based not on old roles, but on a new, shared understanding. One afternoon, she was helping me plant flowers in my garden. "I found some of your old childhood drawings," she said, her hands covered in dirt. "You and Sara. You were always drawing pictures of the two of you holding hands." I stopped digging and looked at her. We were inseparable back then. "What happened?" she asked. Her voice a soft whisper. "Where did I go wrong?" I sighed, sitting back on my heels. "You didn't go wrong, Mom. People make their own choices. Sara started making bad ones a long time ago. She was jealous. She felt like she was living in my shadow. Instead of trying to build her own life, she decided it was easier to try and take mine." "I should have seen it," she said, her eyes welling up. "The little comments, the way she'd undermine you, I thought it was just sibling rivalry." "We all did," I said. "But it's over now. We can't change the past. We can only plant new flowers." I held up a bright red geranium. She took it and smiled, a small, sad smile. We finished the garden in a comfortable silence, the unspoken grief and love hanging in the air between us. My work became a sanctuary. I threw myself into my projects with a new focus. I was a graphic designer, and my creativity flourished. I wasn't just doing it for a paycheck anymore. I was doing it for me. I took on challenging clients. I pitched bold ideas. I started a small freelance business on the side, creating logos and websites for local startups. My boss, a man named Mr. Harris, noticed the change. "You're on fire lately, Clara," he said during my performance review. "Your work has always been good, but now it has a new edge, a confidence. Is there a reason for that?" I thought for a moment. "I guess you could say I had a period of personal restructuring," I said with a small smile. "It clarified my priorities." He laughed. "Well, whatever it is, keep it up. We're creating a new senior designer position at the end of the year. It's yours if you want it." The offer was a validation of everything I had been working towards, a tangible result of my newfound strength. The old Clara would have been shyly pleased. The new Clara was thrilled. "I want it," I said, my voice firm and clear. "Thank you." My life was becoming my own, piece by piece. But the shadow of the past was long. Every now and then, something would trigger a memory. A pair of identical twins walking down the street. A wedding invitation in the mail. A fleeting glimpse of a man who looked like Liam. In those moments, the anger and hurt would come rushing back, a cold tide threatening to pull me under. My therapist taught me how to handle it. "Acknowledge the feeling," she would say. "Don't fight it. Let it be there. And then let it go. It's a scar. It will ache sometimes. That doesn't mean the wound is still open." So I learned to breathe through the memories. I learned to acknowledge the pain without letting it consume me. I learned that my past was a part of me, but it did not define me. Ben was a huge part of that healing. He was the opposite of Liam in every way. He was open and honest. He communicated. He wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. He never tried to fix me. He just loved me, all of me. "You're the strongest person I know," he told me one night as we were cooking dinner together. "I don't feel strong," I confessed. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just faking it." "That's what strength is," he said, stopping his chopping to look at me. "It's not about not feeling scared or weak. It's about showing up anyway. It's about getting out of bed in the morning when you don't want to. It's about choosing to build a beautiful life, even when you've seen the ugliest parts of humanity. And you do that every single day, Clara." His words were a gift. They settled in my heart, a warm and steady light. He saw me, the real me, not the victim, not the survivor, just me. About 6 months before our wedding, I was having lunch with Maya. We were talking about the guest list, the food, all the happy, normal wedding things. "I have to ask," she said, her tone suddenly serious. "Have you thought about them?" I knew who she meant. "Not really," I said, which was mostly true. "They're not a part of my life. They won't be a part of my day." What if she shows up? Maya pressed. Sara, what if she hears you're getting married and just shows up? The thought sent a sliver of ice down my spine. I hadn't even considered it. I had built such strong walls around my new life, I had started to feel invincible. But Maya was right. Sara was unpredictable. And she was still my sister. Legally, at least. I don't think she would, I said, trying to convince myself. She knows she's not welcome. The old Sara wouldn't have cared, Maya pointed out. She loved a dramatic scene. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining it. Sara appearing at the back of the yard, a ghost at the feast. Her presence alone would be enough to ruin everything, to cast a dark shadow over the happiest day of my life. I talked to Ben about it the next morning. I'm probably being paranoid, I said, but I can't get the image out of my head. Ben didn't dismiss my fears. He took them seriously. Then let's make a plan, he said. We can hire a security guard for the day, a plainclothes one. No one will even notice. We'll give them a photo and a simple instruction. She is not to be allowed on the property. No scenes, no discussions, just a firm, quiet, "You are not welcome here." His practical solution was a relief. It was a concrete action I could take to protect my peace of mind. It was another brick in the wall I was building around my happiness. We hired the guard. The simple act of doing so felt like a final act of reclaiming my power. I was no longer reacting to Sara's chaos. I was proactively defending my own serenity. The wedding day arrived, bright and beautiful. I felt a sense of calm that I had never thought possible. As I was getting ready, my mother came into the room. She was holding a small velvet box. "This was your grandmother's," she said, her voice thick with emotion. She opened the box. Inside was a delicate sapphire necklace. "She wanted you to have it on your wedding day. Your real wedding day." She helped me put it on. The cool metal against my skin felt like a blessing, a connection to the strong women in my family who had come before me. "You look beautiful, Clara," my mother said, her eyes shining with tears. "And you look happy." "I am happy, Mom," I said, and the words were the truest I had ever spoken. The ceremony was perfect. Standing with Ben, saying our vows, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past was quiet. The future was bright. The present was all that mattered. After the ceremony, as our guests were mingling, I saw the security guard talking quietly to my father near the entrance to the yard. My heart skipped a beat. My father looked over at me and gave me a subtle, reassuring nod. The guard then discreetly walked away. Later, when I had a moment alone with my dad, I asked him about it. "Was it her?" He sighed, his face a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Yes, she was here. She was standing across the street. The guard saw her. He approached her just as we planned. He said she didn't make a scene. She just cried. And then she left." I looked out at my friends and family, laughing and celebrating. I looked at my new husband, who was watching me from across the lawn with a look of pure love on his face. And I thought of Sara, standing alone across the street, a spectator to the life she had tried to destroy. I felt a flicker of something. Not pity, not forgiveness, just a deep, profound sadness for the person she had become, for the sister I had lost. But it was a distant sadness, a scar that no longer ached. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. I walked back over to Ben, and he wrapped his arms around me. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything is perfect," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. He had been right. They were fools to throw me away. Because in the rubble of the life they tried to shatter, I had built a fortress. And inside, I was finally safe. I was finally home. The years that followed were filled with a quiet, steady happiness that I cherished every day. Ben and I built a life together that was grounded in trust and mutual respect. We bought a bigger house with a large yard for our dog, and eventually for our children. We had a daughter, then a son. They filled our home with laughter and chaos and a love so fierce it sometimes took my breath away. I often thought about what it meant to be a sister as I watched my own children play. My daughter, Lily, was protective of her younger brother, Sam. She would hold his hand when they crossed the street. She would share her toys, even her favorite ones. There was a bond between them, an unspoken loyalty that was beautiful to watch. And it was a painful reminder of what I had lost with Sara. I made a conscious effort to teach my children about boundaries and respect. I taught them that family is not just about blood, it's about trust. And that trust, once broken, is the hardest thing in the world to rebuild. My parents were devoted grandparents. They showered Lily and Sam with love. The joy of having grandchildren seemed to heal some of the wounds Sara had left behind, but her name was never spoken. She was a ghost in our family history, a cautionary tale that was too painful to tell. I continued to excel in my career. I became the creative director at my firm. I loved my work. It was a part of my identity that was completely my own, something no one could ever take from me. I made sure to instill that same sense of independence in my daughter. I wanted her to know that she was the architect of her own life. One day, when Lily was about 10 years old, she came home from school looking thoughtful. "Mom," she said, "we learned about family trees today. Can we make one?" My heart clenched. A family tree. It was such a simple, innocent request. But for our family, it was complicated. How could I draw a tree that had a broken branch? That evening, Ben and I talked about it. "We have to tell her someday," he said gently. "She's going to find out eventually. It's better that she hears it from you." He was right. I couldn't protect her from the truth forever. The next day, I sat down with Lily. I told her that she had an aunt. An aunt named Sara. I didn't go into all the ugly details. I just told her that her aunt had made some very bad choices that had hurt the family deeply. I told her that sometimes, even when you love someone, you have to let them go to protect yourself. Lily listened quietly, her young face serious. "Is that why Grandma and Grandpa look sad sometimes?" she asked. "Yes, sweetie," I said, my voice thick. "That's why." She put her small hand on mine. "It's okay, Mom," she said. "You still have us." Her simple, profound wisdom brought tears to my eyes. I hugged her tightly. She was right. I had them. I had Ben. I had my parents. I had Maya. My life was full of love. What Sara had done could not diminish that. A few years later, my father passed away. His heart just gave out one morning. The loss was immense. At his funeral, I stood and gave the eulogy. I spoke of his kindness, his integrity, and his quiet strength. As I looked out at the assembled faces, my eyes scanned the crowd out of a strange, morbid curiosity. I looked for her, but she wasn't there. I was relieved, and a small hidden part of me was hurt. He was her father, too. After the funeral, my mother, Ben, and I were going through my father's desk. In a locked drawer, we found a stack of letters. They were returned to sender. They were all addressed to Sara at various addresses across the country. He had been writing to her for years, trying to connect, trying to forgive. She had never written back. My mother read one of the letters and started to cry. "He never gave up hope," she sobbed. "He loved her so much." I held her as she cried. I felt a surge of anger at Sara. Anger for the pain she had caused, a pain that had lasted until my father's final day. He had deserved peace. She had denied him even that. That night, I took the letters out to the fire pit in my backyard. One by one, I dropped them into the flames. I watched the paper curl and turn to ash. It was a final goodbye. A release of the last lingering thread of hope that our family could ever be whole again. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. And that was okay. I had built a new family, a stronger one. Life continued its steady, beautiful rhythm. My children grew up. They went to college. Ben and I became empty nesters. We traveled. We enjoyed the quiet peace of our home. The past became more and more distant, a story I sometimes told myself to remember how far I had come. Then, one day, the past came knocking. It was an email from a name I didn't recognize. The subject line was Sarah Thompson. My blood ran cold. For a moment, I considered deleting it without reading it, but I couldn't. I had to know. The email was from a social worker in a city hundreds of miles away. She had found my name and email address in a wallet belonging to a woman who had been admitted to a long-term care facility. The woman was Sara. She had suffered a severe stroke. She was partially paralyzed and unable to speak. She had no money, no insurance, no next of kin listed other than a slip of paper with my name on it. The social worker was direct. As her only known relative, the responsibility for her care and her medical bills may fall to you. I stared at the screen, my mind reeling. The responsibility. After all these years, after everything she had done. The world had a cruel sense of irony. She had tried to steal my money, and now the state wanted me to pay for her existence. I showed the email to Ben. He read it, his face grim. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. I felt a storm of conflicting emotions, anger, resentment, and underneath it all, a tiny, stubborn flicker of pity. She was my sister, my twin. She was alone and broken. "You don't owe her anything, Clara," Ben said firmly. "Nothing. After what she did, you owe her nothing." "I know," I said, "but she's going to die in some state-run facility, alone. Is that who I am? The person who lets that happen?" "You are the person she tried to destroy," he reminded me gently. "You are the person who survived and built a beautiful life in spite of her. Your only responsibility is to protect that life, to protect your peace." We talked about it for hours. I talked to my mother. She was conflicted, torn between a mother's lingering love and the memory of a profound betrayal. I talked to Maya. She was, as always, practical. "Get a lawyer, Clara. Find out what your legal obligations actually are before you let your emotions get the best of you." It was sound advice. I contacted my lawyer. He looked into it. The news was a relief. Because Sara and I had been estranged for so long and because I lived in a different state, I had no legal financial responsibility for her care. I could, legally, walk away and do nothing. And so I was faced with a choice. Not a legal choice, but a moral one. What was the right thing to do? Not for her, but for me. For the person I wanted to be. After a week of sleepless nights, I made a decision. I flew to the city where she was. I went to the care facility. It was a clean but cheerless place. The smell of disinfectant hung heavy in the air. I found her room. She was lying in a bed by the window. She was so small, so frail. Her hair was gray. Her face, half of it slack and expressionless, was lined with a bitterness that went deeper than the stroke. She was a stranger. Her eyes were open. They followed me as I walked into the room. There was a flicker of recognition in them. And then something else. Fear. I pulled up a chair and sat by her bed. I didn't touch her. I just sat there. We were silent for a long time. The only sound was the beep of a machine next to her bed. "Hello, Sara," I said finally. My voice sounded strange in the quiet room. She couldn't speak, but her eyes were eloquent. They were filled with a lifetime of regret, of shame, of a terrible, lonely despair. All the anger I had held on to for so long, all the resentment, it just dissolved. It felt pointless to hate this broken woman. It was like hating a ghost. "I'm not here to save you," I said softly, as much for myself as for her. "I can't, and I'm not here to forgive you. I don't think I can do that either. What you did, it was unforgivable." A single tear rolled down her cheek from her good eye. "But I won't let you be forgotten," I continued. "You are my sister. You are a part of my story. A terrible part, but a part nonetheless. I stayed for another hour. I told her about my life, about Ben, about Lily and Sam. I didn't do it to gloat. I did it to fill the empty space, to let her know that the life she tried to steal had turned out okay. Better than okay. Before I left, I spoke to the social worker. I arranged for an anonymous trust to be set up. It wasn't a lot of money. It was a fraction of the inheritance she had tried to steal. But it was enough to move her to a nicer facility, a place with a garden, a place where she would be comfortable. It was an act of closure, a final clean break. I would pay for her care, but I would not be her caretaker. I would give her comfort, but I would not give her my time or my heart. I flew home. When I walked through the door, Ben was there. He just held me. "I'm okay," I said into his shoulder. "I'm really okay." I never saw Sara again. She lived for another 2 years. The facility sent me a brief formal letter when she passed away. I read it, and I felt a quiet, final sadness. The sadness of a story that had ended badly. That evening, I took out my daughter's old family tree project from a box in the attic. I looked at the branch with my name on it. Next to it was a blank space where Sara's branch should have been. I picked up a pen. I drew a new branch. And on it, I wrote her name. Sara. It wasn't a branch that was connected to mine anymore. It was separate. It was broken. But it was there. A part of the tree, a part of the story. My story. The one I had fought for. The one I had won. And as I put the drawing away, I felt a sense of peace settle over me, deep and unshakable. The ghost was finally laid to rest, and I was free.